this is what you have to do. You have to believe in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai.
If ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you.
We believe, beginning with Elder Apostle Tahar on down, we believe that eventually the Lord is going to give his men, we got to be his men, eventually he's going to give us that power, that spiritual power. And like it says here in Psalms 110, then thy people shall be willing, even these scoffers and scorners. Oh yeah, they'll be willing to show that respect then. And for a lot of them, it'll be too late.
And when he was passed over again by ship unto the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. And behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and besought him greatly, saying, My little daughter lieth at the point of death. I pray thee come, and lay thy hands on her, that she may be healed, and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him, and thronged him. And a certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. When she had heard of it, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole.
Hey, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto my power, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua Bashem Chakodash. That's all praises to the Heavenly Father. His true name in the Hebrew is Yahweh, and his son's name, who the word and they call Jesus Christ, real name in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shah. Also giving praises, honor, and glory to the Yahweh Chakodash, the Holy Spirit, which is the force and entity that makes this edification possible. I want to say Shalom to all you sincere-hearted Akim wa Akwat, as you brothers and few sincere sisters make your bodies a living sacrifice on a daily basis in this wicked and adulterous generation. I also want to give double honors to my beloved apostles and elders, great millstone, who taught me the truth and who rule well. And I'm the brother Osman Wath here from the Great Millstone Dallas camp, coming back this morning through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Shah to do another lesson. And Lord's will, this lesson will be edifying unto the elect of the nation of Israel and glorifying unto the names of my power, Yahweh Bashem Shah. And I want to get back into the book of First Thessalonians. All right, as we started doing a series, we went through First Thessalonians, the first chapter, this past Friday. So I'm just picking up where we left off, and Lord's will, this will be edifying. But as the title of the lesson says, walk worthy of the Lord who called you into His kingdom. All right. And as a matter of fact, we'll open up with this here in the book of Ephesians. All right, the 4th chapter. All right, let's see. Give me 1 second. And shalom to you, Akim and Alkwath, that's tuning in this morning. Yahweh Bashem Shabbat. This is Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 1. And it reads, Therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, therefore the prisoner of the Lord beseech you that you walk worthy of the vocation wherewith you are called. Right. And this is once again the Apostle Paul speaking. This is a common statement that he made throughout many of the epistles that he wrote to these various churches that the Lord had him to take oversight of. And the Spirit was constantly upon him to harp and stress the point to walk worthy of his calling. As the rock of the church said, make your calling and election sure. Right, because when you get this word vocation here in the Greek, all right, it means a high calling. As a matter of fact, we might as well grab it. Okay, as this complements what we're about to read in First Thessalonians, all right, the 4th chapter, as the Apostle Paul was strengthening and confirming the minds, all right, of the church of Thessalonica, because they were being persecuted by wicked jakes, man. All right, being persecuted because of their faith. All right, as them being Israelite foreigners. All right, and you had those of the concision, those of the circumcision, all right, troubling them. All right, and we see the same once again. We could read these All right, these ancient epistles that was written to these churches back then, we could read them today in these times. As scriptures say, there's nothing new under the sun. All these things, are very relevant to us. You see, and what prompted, the Apostle Paul to actually write the book of First and Second Thessalonians? Well, Satan hindered him. All right, he was in prison. You see, but we see how even though through our hindrances that we go through, that the Lord allows Satan, to hinder us, the work still goes forth. That's why we have these written epistles today, of First Thessalonians and Second Thessalonians, man, it's because Paul was in prison. Now, if he wasn't in prison, more likely he would have just went to the church in person, all right, and talked to them through the Spirit, which we wouldn't have the records. But you see how much edification is brought out, even with Satan hindering him. So that's why the scripture says, you can do nothing against the truth before it, man. All right, but I want to get this word vocation for Ephesians 4:1. Strong's G 28:21. Klesis. Let's see.
Strong's G 28:21.
Klesis.
Klesis.
Okay, it says a calling, an invitation. What are we being invited to? We're being invited unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. You see, as the Lord has his prophets, all right, his men out there on the highways and byways bidding you to the marriage. So this is an invitation, and we've accepted the invitation. All right, so with this, all right, there's a code of conduct on how we have to carry ourselves, and that's through wisdom. All right, applying and imitating Yahweh Shai as he's our chief example, man. That's how we walk worthy of this calling. It says of the divine invitation. All right, it says of divine invitation, meaning this is an invitation that not just a God, but the power, okay, has invited us. Many people, they'll be all stoked and excited, if Donald Trump invited them, or any of these celebrities, Michael Jackson, if he was still alive, so, man, people would be stoked if he invited them to a dinner party. You see how much more, okay, Yahweh Bashim Shai, man, personally inviting us, okay, to the marriage supper of the Lamb. So there's a way on how we have to conduct ourselves, or to walk worthy of this high calling. It says a divine invitation to embrace salvation of Yahweh Bashim Shai, and we know, all right, the only ones that's going to accept it and walk worthy of it unto salvation is the elect of the nation of Israel. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into First Thessalonians, the second chapter. And Salakia, turn that off. All right, so this is First Thessalonians, chapter 2 from the top. All right, now the first chapter, was the Apostle Paul greet himself. I went into the church, and you could read more of the background as we went into Acts the 17th chapter this past Friday. Going into how he eventually had to flee from the area of Thessalonica because of the backlash and persecution. All right, he was receiving from the from those wicked jakes, man, of the circumcision, as they went into the Caesar and said, pretty much that Paul and Silas, they're inciting insurrection against you. They're professing another king but Caesar. See, and just like those same wicked jakes did in the time of Yahweh Shai. So Paul, he had to flee. He had to flee that particular land. And I believe he went to his next stop was you could read it in Acts. We read it already in Acts 17th chapter. All right, but the first chapter he was pretty much encouraging the church. Hey, continue to believe. Hey, I'm proud of your work so far. Your work of faith, your labor of love, and your patience. All right, and all these afflictions. You're turning away from the idols. All right, you're waiting for the Son of Man. All right, Yahweh Bashim or Yahweh Shai to come back. All right, in the face of this persecution. So the second chapter, all right, he's going to pretty much go more into detail, because he was kind of clearing up a lot of accusations that was being laid on him, all right, by the circumcision, saying that, he's just preaching, just for vainglory. He's preaching just to get money out of y'all. You see, and mind you, Paul wasn't there personally to defend himself, but clearly, he had report, more than likely from Timothy or Silas, bringing this report back into him, like, yeah, man, this what those wicked Jake's saying about you. So Paul was clearing up his record, or clearing up, his case, to the church, so they don't have like any type of doubting suspicion, like, damn, So this is 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 1. So he says, for yourselves, brethren, know our entrance in unto you, that it was not in vain. All right. As a matter of fact, let's skip up here to verse 9, because the reason why it wasn't in vain is because, all right, there was fruit that was being produced, all right, from the church of Thessalonica. All right, the spirit of Yahweh Bashmal Shah was moving. All right, it says I'm gonna skip up to chapter 1 and verse 9, just to prove that point. It says, for they themselves show of us what manner of entering in we had unto you, and how you turned to the Most High from idols to serve the living and true power. That's right, man. Just like the environment we live in, it's just saturated and infested with idols. Well, that's how, all right, Thessalonica was, as well as all these other churches, Corinth, well, Thessalonica, it was on the border of I can't remember the sea coast, name of the sea coast. It started with the E, but nonetheless, it was like a chief hub of maritime trade and commerce. And with that, it brought in a lot of different people, from different cultures, backgrounds, ideologies, philosophies, gods. It was a habitation of a polytheistic environment. So you had a lot of evangelists, that was pushing forth their gods. You see, and you had the Israelite foreigners. You had Jake getting caught up in that, So, but the church of Thessalonica, all right, after Paul, preached in Acts 17 chapter, they turned from that, man. They're like, nah, man, we down with Yahweh Shema Shah. We believe in the resurrection. Hey, man, we're Israelites. We ain't no Romans. You see, and that's what we're doing. All right, we ain't American. We ain't black. We not Mexican. All right, I ain't no damn Christian. Okay, I'm an Israelite. So, their entrance, all right, Paul, Silas, and Timothy, their entrance into this church, it wasn't in vain. It was producing fruit. So let's go back. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and 1 says, for yourselves, brethren, know our entrance in unto you, that it was not in vain. But even after that, we had suffered before, and were shamefully entreated, as you know, at Philippi, we were bold in our power to speak unto you the gospel of the Most High with much contention. Yeah, man, because they were catching hell in Philippi before they went to the church of Thessalonica. So the Apostle Paul is like, man, once again, he's clearing up, all right, those accusations that was being laid on him. That he's preaching for filthy lucre's sake. He's preaching for vainglory, preaching to, to make a name for himself. It was like, man, before we came into y'all, all right, man, I was just getting beat at Philippi. You see, as a matter of fact, let's get that real quick. In Acts the 16th chapter, it's just a few verses, gives you the account of Paul, all right, at Philippi, and his persecution, that he had to go through. But let's see. We can start right here, verse Acts 16 and verse 11. The points in like around the 22nd verse. We're just going to read it here in the NLT just briefly. Acts chapter 16 and 11 in the NLT says, we boarded a boat at Troas and sailed straight across to the island of Samothrace, and the next day we landed at Neapolis. From there we reached Philippi. All right, so this is where all this went down in Philippi, exactly where the Apostle Paul is making mention of in 1 Thessalonians 2 and 2. All right, where he was visiting before he came to the church of Thessalonica. So he says, from there we reached Philippi, a major city of that district of Macedonia and a Roman colony, and we stayed there several days. On the Sabbath, we went a little way outside the city to a riverbank where we thought people would be meeting for prayer, and we sat down to speak with some women who had gathered there. One of them was Lydia from Thyatira, a merchant of expensive purple cloth, who worshiped the Most High. As she listened to us, the Lord opened her heart and she accepted what Paul was saying. She was baptized along with many. So, like, she was baptized along with other members of her household, and she asked us to be her guest. If you agree that I am a true believer in the Lord, she said, come and stay at my home. And she urged us until we agreed. One day, as we were going down to the place of prayer, we met a demon-possessed slave girl who, and so like it says, she was a fortune teller who earned a lot of money for her masters. Now check this out. She followed Paul and the rest of us, shouting, these men are servants of the Most High God, and they have come to tell you how to be saved. So she was just she was just following Paul, all right, around, wherever they went, and just kept saying that. She clearly she was demon possessed. She was being a demon. She was just, she wasn't being sincere. She was just following him around. It was just a demon inside of her. So it got annoying. So check this out, verse 18. This went on day after day until Paul got exasperated that he turned and said to the demon within her, I command you in the name of Yahweh Shah Hamashiach to come out of her. And he instantly left her. Here's the point. This is where he starts to reach, or he starts to get persecuted at. Verse 19. Her master's hopes of wealth were now shattered, because remember, with her being demon possessed, she had particular powers to where soothsaying and divining powers to where as it said earlier, made her masters a lot of money. You see, so now with Paul casting out that demon, now she's void of that power. Now she's meaning what? Now, okay, she can't make no more money for her master. So now it says her master's hopes of wealth were now shattered. So they grabbed Paul and Silas and dragged them before the authorities at the marketplace. The whole city is in an uproar because of these Jews, they shouted to the city officials. They are teaching customs that are illegal for us Romans to practice. A mob quickly formed against Paul and Silas, and the city officials ordered them stripped and beaten with wooden rods. They were severely beaten, and then they were thrown into prison. The jailer was ordered to make sure they didn't escape. Right. So that's the persecution that he's talking about that met him and Silas at Philippi. All right. So let's go back here to 1 Thessalonians 2:2. It says, but even after we had suffered before and were shamefully entreated, as you know, at Philippi, we were bold in our power to speak unto you. So after they got, beat, flogged, and when the Romans beat you, man, that's something that's etched in your mind. That's meant to like break a man in his faith, make you denounce your God, you see, and to conform, all right, into Rome, you see. But after Paul and Silas got beat, their faith increased. So now the Spirit of the Lord got them walking or going to Thessalonica, preaching the resurrection in much contention, meeting a lot of opposition. And the main ones that was opposing them was wicked Jakes, man, of the circumcision. See? So let's continue to read. But even after that, we had suffered before and were shamefully entreated, as you know, at Philippi. We were bold in our power to speak unto you the gospel of the Most High with much contention, man. See, so this truth, preaching this truth, man, y'all see it, starting with our beloved apostles and their teachers, our elders, our bishops, all right, and the men on down. Listen, when you preach, man, you're going to meet a lot of opposition. It's going to be a lot of contention, man. Why? Because it's stirring up these demons inside of these people, man. You see? So when we see all these particular, rebuke videos, rebuttals, and these camps just acting an ass and speaking out against Great Millstone, and well, that's what's always happened, man. All right, the true, well, Yahweh Shah and his men, the true church, have always It's always been a major point of contention. See, there's a lot of division concerning Yahweh Shah, John 7:49. See, that's just the nature of this gospel. So we shouldn't be taken back or surprised. Oh man, I thought we were supposed to be coming together and it's supposed to be peace. You don't understand what this thing's about, man. You got to read the Bible. We read the Bible. We see the type of backlash and persecution that was meeting the men of the Lord, man. You see? Because why? This word goes against the fabric of society. It goes against the grain of this world, man. You see? This truth is, man, it's stirring up these demons inside these people, but it's also bearing fruit in the elect. That's the whole point. So verse 3, it says, for our exhortation was not of deceit, nor of uncleanliness, nor in guile. So clearly, this is what, those wicked Jakes was blaming or accusing the Apostle Paul and Silas of. They were deceitful, they were unclean, and they were, saying, they were speaking error. So Paul is clearing up this charge, like, nah, man, our exhortation wasn't of deceit. We wasn't here to deceive you, It says, or of uncleanliness, nor in guile, right? And neither are us, all right? Our exhortation is not a deceit, nor of uncleanliness, nor in guile. All right, why? Because we're singing a new song. And it says in Revelation, the 14th chapter, in their mouths were found no guile. You see, that's concerning the elect that's singing this new song. There's no guile, all right, in this truth, man. Scripture says there's no lie of the truth. And we're preaching the same song that all of the apostles, starting with Yahweh Shah, all right, his disciples, which became apostles, we're preaching the same message, man. Ain't nothing changed. You see? As a matter of fact, let's grab this here in Zephaniah. Except now we're just preaching it in the uttermost part of the earth, as it was prophesied in Acts, the 1st chapter. This is Zephaniah 3. Yep, Zephaniah 3:13. It says, the remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. For they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. That's right, man. The remnant, the elect, all right? That the truth is being brought forth, man, with no guile in it, no leaven. So let's go back. 1 Thessalonians 2:4. It says, but as we were allowed of the Most High to be put in trust with the gospel, even so we speak, not as pleasing men, but the Most High which trieth our hearts. For neither at any time used we flattering words, as you know. Yeah, when Paul came, all right, and preached and ministered, all right, he wasn't using no flattering words, trying to, butter them up, preach, preach things that was convenient to to them. No, he was just preaching Yahweh Shai, all right, him crucified and him resurrected, man. You see? Same thing with us. We don't use no flattering words, all these illustrious, puffed up, vain, empty, frothful words, man. No, we just give you the gospel, man. We just give you the skinny. That's it. It says, neither at any time use we flattering words, as you know, nor a cloak of covetousness. All right, so he wasn't trying to get no money, wasn't trying to get no gain out of it. All right, unlike those other people were, unlike the circumcision. All right, and those other so-called evangelists or those other false gods. You see? Hey, you just had, and we just had an example. Who was that? Marvin Sapp. Close the door. I said, close the door. Yeah, man. Hey, that was going on back then too. Those individuals, those evangelists, or those false gods. Serapis. Isis, and Semiramis. They were there strictly for money, for profit's sake, man. Well, we just got the account in Acts the 16th chapter about that demon-possessed girl. She was divining and soothsaying just to get some money. All right. And that's what you simple ass people get anyway, man, for following these people. You see? So yeah. As a matter of fact, let's get this real quick in 2 Corinthians 4 chapter. But see, we don't do it for covetousness sake, covetous means, man. You know, we preach this gospel for free. It freely has been given, so freely, or freely as it's been received, freely give. As Yahweh Shah said. That's Matthew the 10th chapter. You know, you don't see, you know, us brothers, oh yeah, super chat me. You know, got a Cash Apps and Zelle and Venmo, you know, info in the description box. And hell no, man. Nah, man, we preaching this, you know, because Yahweh Bashmal Shah put it up on our spirits too. All right, we've entered into other men's foundations. And we're not using this for, you know, for means to make money, means to make gain. That's why we got fucking jobs, man. You know, brothers ain't lazy, man. Brothers work with our own hands. As a matter of fact, when you continue, as we continue to go through the book of Thessalonians, the Apostle Paul speaks the importance about that. You know, if a man doesn't work, he doesn't deserve to eat. Roughly paraphrasing. Every man should be working with his own hands, not idle, man. You see, don't just be a fucking leech off the church. You know, that's not the example that Yahweh Shai gave us, man. So let's get this. 2 Corinthians 2 and 17 in the NOT. It says, "You see, we are not like the many hucksters." All right, we are not like the many hucksters who preach for personal profit. Yeah, those wicked shepherds and pastors that feed their own selves and not the flock, man. And you see a lot of that even amongst Israel. You know, scandal going on with Alazar. You know, sending $42,000 from tithe money, all right, to some hope, man. You know, like damn. But see, also that's what those simple ass jakes get for following that dude, man. You know. But either way, all right. Either way, man. Hey, that shit is off, man. It's wicked. No, man. It says, verse 17, "You see, we are not like the many hucksters who preach for personal profit. We preach the word of the Most High with sincerity and with Hamashiach's authority." Yeah, Yahweh Shah authorized us to do this, man. Starting with our apostles and their teachers and the men on down. The Lord has given us the right hand of fellowship, man. He's given us an unction, all right? You know, and the Holy Spirit to do this, you know? And we know that this is not of ourselves, so we remove ourselves from the equation, all right? We preach Yahweh Shai, him crucified. That's it, man. It says, "For we preach the word of the Most High with sincerity and with Hamashiach's authority, knowing that the Most High is watching us," man. And that should put fear inside of you. If you right, that's gonna put fear in you, man. Knowing that, man, I'm being watched, bro. See, people they when they see cameras in the building, or that's when they try to get on the act. Oh, okay, shit, man, it's a camera right here. Let me, bro. Do you not know that the angels, the angels are constantly watching, man? How about Shemal Shah is constantly watching. You see? So yeah, that's what keeps us on that act right, man. So let's go back here to 1 Thessalonians 2 and verse 4. It says, also like in verse 5, it says, For neither at any time use we flattering words, as you know, nor a cloak of covetousness, the Most High is witness, nor of men sought we glory." Yeah, that vain glory, all right, that many men are after. They wanna look like the man in front of, all right, all these jakes, man. Coming in on Passover on a horse, matching garments. Nah, man. You don't need this, bro. When you got the 100% truth, you don't need gimmicks. You see, gimmicks, pretty much is like a filler, to supplement, that which is lacking in your doctrine. See, when your doctrine's on point, man, you don't need to have no damn gimmicks, man. Try to find glory, nah, man. Okay. So the Apostle Paul says, "Nor of men sought we glory, neither of you, nor yet of others, when we might have been burdensome as the apostles of Hamashiach." Meaning, we could have gotten, we could have asked, for monetary help or money from you. All right, we could have been burdensome, but all right, that's not what we came. As a matter of fact, I want to get that 2 Corinthians. Is it 9? Let's see. Bear with me. Let me find this real quick. I believe it's 1 Corinthians 9. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 9 and 3 in the NLT. This is my answer to you. So, like, this is my answer to those who question my authority. Don't we have the right to live in your homes and share your meals? Don't we have the right to bring a Christian wife with us as the other apostles and the Lord's brothers do, and as Peter does? Or is it only Barnabas and I who have to work to support ourselves? What soldier has to pay his own expenses? What farmer plants a vineyard and doesn't have the right to eat some of its fruit? What shepherd cares for a flock of sheep and isn't allowed to drink some of the milk? You see, as you continue to read, he quotes the law, you must not muzzle the ox. As a matter of fact, I'll just keep reading it. Verse 9, I'm skip down verse 9. For as the law of Moses say, you must not muzzle an ox to keep it from eating as it treads out the grain. Was the Most High thinking only about oxen when he said this? Wasn't he actually speaking to us? Yes, it was written for us, so that the one who plows and the one who threshes the grain might expect a harvest, a share of the harvest. Right. But the Apostle Paul continued to speak about, like, we didn't, we wasn't trying to, get into that from you, though. We just came here to preach the word. Now, of course, you support the men, all right, that teach you, all right, that bring you up in this truth. You support the church, man. All right, but the Apostle Paul is like, we didn't put that burden up on you, man. See, because once again, he was being accused. Him and Silas, they were being accused, of trying to, extort, these men, all right, that start to believe their word, just so they could doubt him, man. But it didn't work. The church of Thessalonica, they were on point. They were on point. Now, of course, the Apostle Paul, he had to clear up some of their simplicity. They were kind of simple. You had some of them quitting their jobs, quitting their careers because, well, Yahweh Shai, he coming back soon. So, so that's why he said, nah, don't, he said, don't quit your jobs, man. You need to be working, don't be sitting idly, he pretty much, quoted what Yahweh Shai said, be occupied till you come, be occupied in this ministry and, stay on your business, But other than that, they were very well on point in the face of persecution. In the face of persecution, they kept their faith. So let's go back here to 1 Thessalonians 2 and verse 7. It says, "But we were gentle among you, even as a nurse cherishes her children." Right? He wasn't being a tyrant, lording over them. Verse 8. "So being affectionately desirous of you, we were willing to have imparted unto you not the gospel of the Most High only, but also our own souls, because you were dear unto us." See? So once again, man, the Apostle Paul is showing how much, care and love he has. All right. Him, Silas, and Timothy has, all right, for this church, man. Man, we wouldn't have just given to you the gospel. We would have given to you our own lives. And the same thing with our apostles and the men on down, myself included, man. You see, hey, Yahweh Shai said that, no greater love. Let's get that, John 15:13, because really, if you preaching this truth, man, with sincerity and out of fear and reverence of Yahweh Bashem Shai, you already laid your life down for your brethren, A lot of people just think, laying your life down is mean, I'll take a bullet for you, I'll go in guillotine. No, really laying your life down, okay, is by living, all right, living for Yahweh Bashmal Shah, man, living to feed the flock, as you're dead to yourself, you give up your own desires, Now, of course, we still do particular things that, we enjoy to do, but that's on the back burner, Yahweh Bashmal Shah and feeding the flock, that comes first. So really, starting with their apostles and their teachers and the men on down, we've already given up our lives, you know, for the sake of Yahweh Bashim Shah, all right, and the elect, man. So that's love. So this is John 15 and verse 13. It says, greater love. Let's start at verse 12. He says, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love have no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Yeah. Lay down your life for your friends. Yeah, that's spiritually and physically. Right. If it gets to the physical, you know, but you know, as it stands right now, if we haven't resisted yet unto blood, you know, well, we do that in the spirit, man, as we die daily, you know. Yahweh Shah says, no man can be my disciple except he deny himself. And you get that word deny, it means to forget oneself, to give up one's own interest, man. You know, because brothers got all different types of things they could be doing right now. You know, giving their time, you know, they be in the bed still asleep before they go to work. You know, but brothers, you know, man, I fear Yahweh Bashim Shah. I love the elect. You know, I want to edify the elect, working out my own salvation, fear and tremble. Let me get my ass up. You know, go out to the highways and byways. You got to deal with all these damn demons and scoffers. You know, look at our apostles, man. Look at all the shit that they had to go through. You know, getting hemmed up. You know, with that whole situation and 9 to the 1 to the 1. You know, situation back in 2001. You know, they pushed through it, man. Preaching for 10 years straight when all these other men dropped the plow. You know, they pushed for 10 years straight. You know, nothing really showing for it. Well, at least not seemingly. It has, you know, clearly if it wasn't, we wouldn't be here. But preaching for 10 years straight, man. You know, going through persecution, catching hell. See, that's what it looks like to truly, all right, you know, feed the flock, all right, and love, all right, the lambs of Yahweh Bashim Shah, man. That's that love that Yahweh Shah is talking about. All right, love is an action. Matter of fact, Paul said that earlier in 1 Thessalonians. You know, he says your work and labor of love. Love is a labor. Love ain't no damn fuzzy feeling, you know. No, love is work. You see? And Yahweh Shah showed us what it truly looks like. So let's go back here to 1 Thessalonians. So we got plenty of examples, man, to look at. All right. In the scriptures and living examples right now. So there's no excuse why any of us should be confused on what we need to be doing. You know, ain't nobody got an excuse. What is that? Romans the 1st chapter. Thou art an inexcusable old man. You know. So that's why when Yahweh Shah come back, he ain't trying to hear it, man. But. No, ain't no damn buts, man. That's your ass. Okay. You see? So let's go back to 1 Thessalonians 2. And I want to get that in NLT real quick. 1 Thessalonians 2 and 8 in the NLT, it says, we love you so much that we shared with you not only the Most High's good news, but our own lives too. Right, man. And if I'm not mistaken, the Apostle Paul was in prison as he wrote this too, man. Check that out. Why was he in prison? Because of the love he has for Yahweh Bashim Shah, all right, and his flock, the elect, man. Hey, remember what Paul said? He says, I endure all things for the elect's sake. See? So yeah, this just ain't no, you know, something that he was just writing down to hand it to Timothy so he could read it to the church and, you know, make them feel good. No, bro, this is real stuff. And it was catching hell, man, for the sake of the gospel. And, you know, for us brothers, us young brothers, you know, that's entered into, you know, these men's foundation, starting with Yahweh Shah, you know, we got to ask ourselves, are we willing to take it there? You know, you being hemmed up in, you know, prison or, you know, whatnot, you know, you still keep that same level of fervency, all right, for Yahweh Bashim Shah and this truth, man. Because that right there, that will offend a lot of people, man. Imagine getting beat by some Edomites, man. You know, that's what happened to Paul. Got flogged, you know, in public, stripped. Like, first and foremost, he stripped butt naked, man. You know, imagine, bro, that right there as a grown man, like, yo, you'll feel humiliated, man. So you strip butt naked, everybody looking at you. You know, you got some Edomites just beating the shit out of you, man. You know, just ripping your back open, you know, with these flogs and whips, all because you preaching Yahweh Shema Shai, man. Trying to call in the elect. But yet you got these wicked ass niggas. They're the ones that you know, that did this to you. That they profess another king, you know. But yet, you know, you leave the prison and you go even harder. That didn't break your faith. You go even harder for Yahweh Shema Shai. You see? So persecutions, they do either one or two things. Either it breaks your faith, you know, it breaks your faith and you get offended and you go back into the world and you just wait for the sword from Yahweh Shema Shai, or you go harder because you're not going to stay on the same level after that. You're going to do one or two things. You're going to wait for the sword of Yahweh Shema Shai. You know, you're going to perish, or you're going to go harder, man. That's what happened to the Apostle Paul. That's what afflictions do, man. The Apostle Paul, he went even harder, bro. That's why after you read in Acts 16, you read Acts 17, bro, he was preaching boldly, man. Him and Silas, they was preaching boldly the resurrection of Yahweh Shai. They was going in. We read it early. We read it last Friday. You know, bro. He said, man, we're going to the prophecies, explaining that now this is the Messiah right here. You see, they was filled with the Spirit. Like, yo, man, hey, that's powerful. That's powerful, man. You know, and that produced a lot of fruit from this church. And this was a very young church. And the Apostle Paul, he didn't really have that much time to be around them. You know, because shortly after, you know, he preached that, you know, the word. You know, he pretty much kind of had to go. You know, to flee from those wicked jakes, man. So you know, get him back up. You know, but let's go back to 1 Thessalonians 2. And that's, you know, and that's another reason why he's writing this letter unto, you know, this church, so he can hand it to Timothy, so he could let them know, like, listen, I ain't forget about y'all. You know, I love y'all. You know, I'm praying for y'all. You know, keep doing what y'all doing. See, but he was hindered by Satan. He couldn't come. He couldn't be there. But you see that hindrance turned out to be our blessing. So now we can read, as we're doing right now. What's the day? March the 31st, 2025. Now, because Satan hindered Paul, all right, from him actually being there with the church in the flesh, all right, now we can read what he wrote to them, and we could be edified. So Satan, bro, listen, when we meet opposition with Satan, man, he's really working for the benefit. If we be a part of the number, bro, it's nothing he can do. You know, this nigga's void of power when it comes to, you know, coming up against the elect. All things work together for the good of those that love Yahweh Shema Shai and that are called according to his purposes, man. So let's go back. 1 Thessalonians 2 and 9. It says, "For you remember, brethren, our labor and travail." Yeah, meaning trouble, man. Hardships. "For laboring night and day, because we would not be chargeable unto any of you. We preach unto you the gospel of the Most High. You are witnesses, and the Most High also, how holily and justly and unblameably we behaved ourselves among you that believe." Yeah, you know, they weren't, you know, putting the ministry at blame by their actions or anything. No, they were, you know, upright in their conversation, in their chaste conversation and conduct, all right, towards believers. And that's the same, you know, example that we see our apostles, man. You know, that's why they can, you know, boldly tell us, like, if y'all didn't see us do it, you don't need to do it. You know, the way we conduct ourselves on the highways and byways, even not even just that, you know, just in our daily lives, man. You know, so we have examples, man, on how to follow, on what to do. You know, so that's why the Apostle Paul is like, man, y'all know how y'all are witnesses on how we, you know, conducted ourselves. We conducted ourselves holily, meaning separate. All right. And Great Millstone, man, hey, this is a holy camp. We're not mixed and mingled in with the world, having packs and trees with Esau 501c3s. No. Okay, man, you think Paul and Silas, because I'm sure they had, you know, back then, hey, that might be a lesson. I, you know, look up what, yeah, they did have them. Yeah, they had treaties and pacts to where, yeah, because the scribes and Pharisees, that's John the 11th chapter. It's just coming to memory, Salaki. But, you know, you had, you know, scribes and Pharisees saying, you know, lest the Romans should take our seat and authority. Well, yeah, Esau set up, you know, those jakes in prominent positions, but they had to, hey, it was gag orders. You couldn't preach in the name of Yahweh Shai. That's Acts the 5th chapter. You know, forbid that these men speak in the name of Yahweh. I'm pretty sure they spoke in any other name, they wouldn't, have a problem with that. But I say all that to say, all right, Paul and Silas and these men, all right, Peter, man, they were holy. They were like, nah, man, hey, this word, it goes against the society, and we're not to mix and mingle it in, all right, with this world. So it says, you are witnesses of the Most High also, how holily and justly and unblameably we behaved ourselves among you that believe. Verse 11, as you know how we exhorted and comforted and charged every one of you as a father doth his children, that you should walk worthy of the Most High, who have called you unto his kingdom and glory. Right, as the title of the lesson says, all right, walk worthy of the Lord who called you into his kingdom. You see? And that's called what? Working out our own salvation with fear and trembling, making our calling and election sure, walking with wisdom, behaving ourselves wisely. And just like the Lord said about King David, says that King David, he behaved himself wisely and the Lord was with him, man. That's how we walk worthy. See? Walking in the fear of Yahweh by Shemal Shah. So it says that you will walk worthy of the Most High, who have called you unto his kingdom and glory. For this cause also thank we the Most High without ceasing, because when you received the word of the Most High, which you heard of us, you received it not as the word of men. See, so they didn't just look at the vessels. Oh, this is the word of Paul and Silas. No, they were spiritual. You see, you got to be spiritual, man. When we watch the apostles and the elders and the bishops, we're not receiving the word. Okay, well, that's what the apostle Har said. That's what Apostle Gabar said. No, no, this is what Yahweh Bashmal Shah says. Why? Because they coming out the scriptures, man. You see, and that's exactly all right what Paul is saying here. Let's read it again. Because when you received the word of the Most High, which you heard of us, you received it not as the word of men, but as it is in truth the word of the Most High, which effectually worketh also in you that believeth. That's right, man. See, so ultimately the Spirit, has to be inside of you in order to understand that this is the Spirit speaking. All right, this ain't the words of men. But once again, you gotta be spiritual, and being spiritual is a gift. All right, 1 Corinthians, I believe, was at the 1st and 2nd chapter. Spiritual man discerneth all things. So verse 14, for you, brethren, became followers of the churches of the Most High, which in Judea are in Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. So it's like, so y'all are joined into the churches. Y'all are followers of the churches in Judea. Now, once again, these were Gentiles, Israelite foreigners, but he says, hey, y'all are followers of the church in Judea. It says, for you also have suffered like things of your own countrymen, even as they have of the Jews. See, let's get that in NLT real quick. Because once again, that's the main reason why the book of Thessalonians was written. All right, it's to comfort, all right, these Israelite foreigners in this province in Thessalonica, all right, to comfort and exhort them, all right, in the faith, in spite of the persecution that their own people, all right, are putting them through. So this is 1 Thessalonians 2:14 in the NLT. And then, dear brothers and sisters, you suffered persecution from your own countrymen. See, from your own countrymen. And when we often read 2 Thessalonians 1:6, as it says, seeing it is a righteous thing with the Most High to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you, that's really talking about Jake, because Jake was troubling, all right, these Israelite foreigners. Now we apply that to Esau, as we can always apply that to Esau. See, because that's these niggas' gods, man. You are of your father, the devil. You see, so they move in the spirit and vibration of Esau. You see, but Paul was singling out Jakes right there, those wicked Jakes, man. So this should exhort us, man, because best believe, all right. I mean, hell, it's already happening now, but especially even more so in the near future. a lot of these camps gonna start coming up like against us, man, like physically, you know. But we shouldn't be shaken in our faith, man. Okay, because one, we were told that this would happen, and two, all right, this is something that that's always happened. See, but we're also banking on that standard to come this time, you know. Hey, this is the end, bro. You ain't about to run amok upon the Most High's people like you have in times past. You know, just have the blood of the prophets just poured out every. Nah, man. You know, if we know a few, brothers and sisters gonna have to be martyrs, but man, the Lord's about to, man, he's about to raise up, these men with some power. You see. But let's get this. Let's finish this in the NLT. It says, and then, brothers and sisters, you suffered persecution from your own countrymen. In this way, you imitated the believers in the Most High, in the Most High's churches in Judea, who, because of their faith, because of their belief in Hamashiach Yahushua, suffered from their own people, the Jews. See, for some of the Jews killed the prophets, and some even killed the Lord Yahushua. Now they have persecuted us too. And Yahushua told us that this would happen. John 16. He says, let's get that real quick. John 16. John 16 and verse 1. These things have I spoken unto you, that you should not be offended. Because that right there will offend a lot of Jake. That's why our apostles say, man, you gotta understand what you gotta, understand what you're a part of. This ain't no big Hebrew Israelite gathering and festival, just having a gay old time. No, man. Hey, we've been woken up in these latter days, all right, to enter back into this war, which we never, was out of the war. All right, now we just understand what we fighting. See, when we was in the world, we didn't know what was going on, but now we understand what's going on. All right. And Yahweh Shemashah he's about to pay a lot of these wicked jakes back, man, for what they that's why he says, measure up, fulfill ye the measure of your fathers. We're about to see that, man. We are in that generation. We're about to see these jakes, man, get what they deserve. And Lord willing, we're not a part of that. We don't want no parts of that, man. Okay. That was a heavy statement Yahweh said in Matthew 23. Fill ye up then the measures of your father, bro. God damn, bro. From the blood of all the men, from Abel to Zechariah, bro. Our Lord Yahweh Shah, man. These wicked jakes, bro, that's doing this off weird shit, man. These are the same spirits, all right, that said, crucify him, let his blood be upon us and our children, man. They're alive today in these times, man. And we're not supposed to have any type of sympathy for these niggas, man. And these things, we harp upon this all the time because why? When the judgment comes, if you're offended, well, you're going to be destroyed too. So we're bracing ourselves for impact. It's about to be a lot of harsh, gruesome, like final destination type judgments going out on Israelites that know that the Israelites. So if you in that spirit or that mindset, oh man, that's an Israelite, man. Oh man, that's a brother, man. Man, that's a weak ass spirit, bro. All these things have to play out for prophecy's sake, man. And just hope and pray that we not on that side of judgment. But let me finish this in John 16 and 1. These things have I spoken unto you, that you should not be offended. They shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth the Most High service, man. So they're going to really think that the Most High is on their side. And really, if you want to be technical, all right, Paul was actually a part of this. Before he was Paul, when he was still Saul, all right, he was persecuting the church of the Most High, killing them, dragging them out synagogues and, beating them and, but he got converted. And the Lord used him. Woo, man, bro, the Lord's mercy that could be a stumbling block too. That could really be a stumbling block too unto a lot of people, but the Lord used the Apostle Paul to show his mercy, man. Like, yeah, he used to do all this against the church and against me. Paul, why you, kick against the pricks, but the Lord converted him. Paul did a complete 180. Now we fast forward and reading First Thessalonians, and now the Apostle Paul is exhorting the church of the Most High. Don't give up your faith against those that's persecuting you, man. You see? Hey, listen, the Lord's judgments is out there, you know. So all we can do, and like I say in Wisdom Solomon, the 17th chapter says, unnurtured souls have erred because of the Lord's judgments. You know, we got to be cultured. We have to be nurtured in the ways of our power, knowing how he gets down, you know, and even in particular, you know, judgments that he makes that we don't understand. Just go with it. We just got to go with it, man. Okay. Understanding that and knowing that everything that happens, how about Shemal Shah signed off on it, man. So if we start to doubt and second guess, man, I don't know if that was the Lord, man. Maybe that was just like an anomaly. I don't know. You know, that's where you go off. That's where you start to err at. You know, unnurtured souls have erred. We got to be nurtured in this thing. We got to know, all right, how our power gets down. That's Jeremiah the 9th chapter. Let him that glory in this, that he understands that knoweth me, that I'm a power that exercises loving kindness and judgment, man. You know, and the Apostle Paul was a prime example of the Lord exercising loving kindness. Like, bro, that is loving kindness. You know, the Lord, you know, hey, Paul, he was well known. You know, a well-known Pharisee, very taught, you know, very, you know, learned, you know, in the law, you know, zealous toward the law, to the point to where he was, you know, killing a lot of Jake, man, that believed on Yahweh, but the Lord used him to show his loving kindness and mercy. You see, change his name, you know, change his whole spirit, you know. Now he's going hardcore for the resurrection of Yahweh by Shemal Shah, man. You know, teaching and feeding the lambs of the Lord, man. See? But let me go back here. Let's finish this out in 1 Thessalonians 2 and 15 in the NLT. It says, for some of the Jews killed the prophets, and some even killed the Lord. Now they have persecuted us too. They failed to please the Most High and work. They failed to please the Most High and work against all humanity. Wow. That's these wicked niggas today, bro. Look at these jakes, man. They work against all of humanity. Not only are they a detriment unto themselves, but they're a detriment to the men that's around them and everybody. You see? So you mean to tell me that there ain't no judgment for that? Let's get this in the KJV, verse 16. They forbid us to speak to the Gentiles, talking about the Israelite foreigners. See? Why? Because they had to be enemies of the gospel. All right. See, this was all prophesied. The Lord set all this up, man. They was jealous, and the Lord prophesied. And what was that? Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter. He's going to provoke Jake to jealousy. All right, with the people that are not a people. That's talking about the Israelite foreigners, the Gentiles. So we see all this playing out 1,000 years later, man. Something that the Lord already wrote. That's why, once again, it's important to be in those prophecies, man. You know, to be in the script so we don't get offended. All right, well, the Lord did say he's going to provoke us to jealousy with nothing. See, but that was happening in real time, you know, and it was bringing forth a lot of persecution. And if you didn't understand, all right, what the Lord was doing with you, you'll get offended. I'm going to get this, though. Romans 11 and 28. As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes. So we got enemies, man. All right, because of the gospel. Okay. We didn't write the movie. The Lord did, man. So we just living it out. So he says, as concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sake, but as touching the election, they are beloved for the Father's sake. That's right, man. But overall, they're still Israelites, and they're going to come back in the kingdom all right. But here on this side, they're enemies, and they're going to get put to death, man. So let's go back here, verse 16, 1 Thessalonians 2. Forbidding us to speak to the Gentiles that they might be saved, to fill, check this out, to fill up their sins always. That's the same thing Yahweh Shah said. We quoted it. We might as well get it. Matthew 23. So the Apostle Paul is saying, like, they're doing this so they could fill up their sins. There's just like Esau has a measure and a threshold he got to reach. all right, of his sins and abominations to the Lord, chops his ass down. These wicked jakes, they got a threshold, all right, that they got to meet to the Lord chops them down. That's Ezekiel 9. You see, judgment must first begin at the house of the Most High. So Matthew 23:16, Yahweh says, he says, see, is that what I want? That's not what I want. Give me 1 second. 23 and 32. That's what I want. This is Matthew chapter 23 and verse 32. I'm gonna start right here, verse 29. He says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would have not been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets," which, once again, they did partake in the blood of the prophets. Why and how? Through reincarnation. See, just like the prophets are, the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets, so are these wicked jakes, so are the false prophets. So they were back then. They were there back then, persecuting the prophets, just like they were back then, right here, as Yahweh Shah was speaking, persecuting, and coming up against Yahweh Shah and his followers. So verse 31, he says, "Wherefore you be witnesses unto yourselves that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers." Woo! Let's get that word measure, man. This is scary, bro. As we see all this shit happening happening right now, okay, you got, bro, we see that the MOTB is right around the corner. You got Trump, okay, modernizing, all right, these payments to where everything's going digital. All right, we see all this shit heating up in the Middle East. Well, before all this goes down, remember what the Lord say: judgment must first begin at my house, man. So very, very, very soon, bro. I mean, you got the brothers getting dreams and visions of death angels just doing a number on Jake, man. So this is what we got to be prepared for in the mind. So it's really the spirit that we're going through 1 Thessalonians. This is really the spirit. I didn't plan on it. This past Friday, the spirit just hopped on me and, get into it. I had another lesson in mind, but then the brother, who was that? The brother, brother out there in Ohio, beloved brother Mashal, and another brother he was speaking to, they had hit me up like, man, that's the spirit you went to that lesson, bro. We was just talking about that chapter just last night. I'm like, dang, for real? So it's a spirit that we're going through this, man, because you see where the spirit is guiding it. Like it's killing a lot of birds with one stone. It's edifying the elect, and it's also showing forth the judgment that's coming to these wicked jakes, man, for coming up against Yahweh Bashmal Shai and the elect. You see, because we know Esau gonna get his, man. There's no question about that. You see, but judgment must first begin at the house of the Most High. But I want to get this word measure, as Yahweh says, "Fill ye up then the measure of your fathers." Let's get this word measure, because Jake got to measure. He got to fill up, man, before Yahweh Bashmal Shai get busy on him. And we don't want to be a part of that measure. Okay, this is Strong's G3358 Metron. It says measure, an instrument for measuring. All right, this is a part of measuring the time. You look at Jake's wickedness. You measuring the time, looking at Jake's wickedness, because they got to measure that they're measuring. Hey, the scriptures say that the Lord does everything in measure, weight, and number. The Lord is very calculative, and and strategic. He, in his mind, he already got a certain number on things, man, until he just makes his move. That's for the righteous and the wicked. So it says a vessel for receiving and determining the quantity of things. Ooh, let's read that again. A vessel for receiving and determining the quantity of things, whether dry or liquid. It says proverbially the rule or standard of judgment. Yeah, that's it. Proverbially the rule or standard of judgment. See? So this judgment is going to come out, all right, once this measure is fulfilled. It says portion. Yep, that's pretty much the point. There's a portion. So let's go back here to 1 Thessalonians 2:16. We only got a few more verses left. It says, forbidding us to speak to the Gentiles that they might be saved, to fill up their sins always, for the wrath has come upon them to the uttermost. Now, let's get that in NLT. All right. So the Apostle Paul is like, yeah, finally these niggas about to get paid back. Now, what was he thinking about? He was thinking about 70 AD. Because those wicked jakes, man, they got ooh-wee. All those pacts and treaties and covenants that they made with Esau so they could stay up in those prominent positions. They saw that shit crashing down on their ass, man. And that judgment came. Famished, eating their children, starved, sword piercing through them, fires, they getting set on fire, all different types of shit, man. See? Let's get that in NLT, verse 16. He says, as they try to keep us from preaching the good news of salvation to the Gentiles, by doing this, they continue to pile up their sins, but the anger of the Most High has caught up with them at last. Yeah, he says the anger of the Most High has caught up with them at last, man. And you know he was thinking about 70 AD. He's like, man, his judgment coming. You see now the Apostle Paul, hey, now, yeah, he was put to death. You know, we know he was beheaded. All right, but that was for a righteous cause, man. He was a martyr, and he's gonna be resurrected to life. You see, but those wicked jakes, man, they're gonna be resurrected to damnation. See, because somebody made, well, Apostle Paul, he was killed too, wasn't it? Yeah, but it was for Yahweh's name. See, you want to go out with honor. Okay, you want to go out for the sake of Yahweh, not for the sake of being a nigga. All right. So verse 17, it says in the KJV, but we brethren being taken from you for a short time, all right, and he was taken away, you know, meaning he couldn't be there physically with them because he was suffering persecution, you know, imprisoned, you know, he couldn't be there, all because of these wicked jakes, man. But once again, it all worked out for our benefit here in these times, so we can have these epistles and be encouraged and be strengthened. You know, this definitely edifies me, man. Reading, I love reading the epistles, man. All these epistles to these churches, you know. It kind of shows you like the science of, you know, the science and the operation, the inner workings of, you know, how salvation comes. Like it's like the lifestyle, the culture, that everything that goes inside of it, man. And then we're blessed to have the brotherhood. We got these beautiful elders over our camps, man. And, you know, that really like cultivates and shapes our minds, because it's more than just, once again, man, it's more than just knowing you Israelite, knowing a few scriptures and quoting scripture. Get that for me, brother. You know, it's really, I'm starting to understand it more and more every day. Like as the beloved elder Yahshua, you know, says all the time, man, being in this truth, it's a way. It's truly a way. It's a way for it's a way to everything. Like when you cooking, it's a way to it. Like, you know, somebody can make smothered chicken one way, but another person can make smothered chicken that way. And it's like, nah, I like that. They know the way, you know. Or you playing football or basketball, it's a way to it. It's a way to dribble. Like, you know, anybody could dribble, but you could tell if a person really got it, like the way they dribble. When you go fishing, whatever you do, it's a way to it. So being in this truth, man, that's why it's called the way. You know, Yahweh, he's the way. I'm the way, the truth, the life, man. So I'm starting to understand that more, you know. But I want to get this. But once again, I say all that to say, like, really reading these epistles, you know, Romans, Ephesians, you know, Colossians, all these epistles, Corinthians, Thessalonians, as we're reading right now, like it helps to cultivate your mind to see what we're a part of, what our culture is all about. You know, of course, reading all the other books, you know, the prophecies, the law, the wisdom books, you know, the history, you know, but it all ties in, man. You know, the Lord, he's a mastermind. So anyway, let's go back. 1 Thessalonians 2:17. But we, brethren, being taken from you for a short time in presence, not in heart, endeavored the more abundantly to see your face with great desire. So he was longing to see them, man, because he was kind of taken away from him prematurely. He didn't really have that much time to be around this young church, you know. But we saw how the Lord, supplemented them, man, and kept them. You know, when they heard Paul's discourse in Acts the 17th chapter, it was like, man, we believe this. We turn away from these idols. We believe this right here. You know, this is the way. But, Paul, he didn't have that much time with him, but the Lord still worked it all out. Verse 18, wherefore we would have come unto you, even I, Paul, once and again, but Satan hindered us. And once again, all right, with Satan hindering them from coming unto them, that works in our benefit, because now we can read this epistle that the apostle Paul sent off to them, all right, to be read unto them, and it's encouraging us, because if he was with them, if Satan didn't hinder them, well, we wouldn't have this epistle right here, more than likely, So applying that to ourselves, when Satan hinders us from particular things, it all is somehow, some way, we don't know. It may not even make sense right then and there for a year or two, but hypothetically speaking, if we was here for another, I don't want to say that, but we was here for another 20 years or whatever, like, it's still going to work out somehow, some way, from the hindrances and offsets that we go. But I'll just use the examples that the apostles, go through, our apostles, all those particular times that they were hindered, particularly, things that they had to go through. But you see how it worked out for our benefit, We'll use that as an example, because we ain't got no 20 years. I don't believe that. All right, but anyway, verse 18, again, it says, wherefore we would have come unto you, even I, Paul, once and again, but Satan hindered us. He says, verse 19, for what is our hope or joy or crown of rejoicing? Are not even ye in the presence of our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach at his coming? So the apostle Paul is like, man, y'all are the crown. You're our rejoicing. Now we know we're actually going to have crowns. I'm looking, Lord, well, I'm part of that number. I'm looking forward to that crown. But hey, the believers that you've encouraged, the believers that brothers, that came into this gospel by hearing this word of truth from your lips, to the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai, that's the crown. Scripture says, he that winneth souls is wise. See, that's what we're in this thing for, man. We're here to be fishers of men. Okay, we're not here to make a name for ourselves, to get hoes, to look cute on the camera. We're here to fish men. This is Proverbs 11 and verse 30. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and he that winneth souls is wise. That's right, man. So if you wise, you're gonna win some souls, man. How many people can I reach today? That's the mindset we gotta have when we get up, man. How many people can I reach today, man? To turn back into the true faith of Yahweh Shema Shai. Even if it's just one. Hey, the Lord says that, man, when one sinner repents, man, all of heaven, all the angels rejoice, man. Just one, So yeah, and another brother could have planted the seed, but the Lord set you up to water it, or vice versa. You could have planted the seed, and somebody else, both of y'all going to share it, So that's the crown right there, man. It says, let's read that again, verse 19. For what is our hope or joy or crown of rejoicing? Are not even ye in the presence of our Lord Yahushua HaMashiach at his coming? For you are our glory and joy. That's right, man. The believers, the elect, you few sincere Akim and Akwath, man. You're the glory and joy. You're the glory and joy, all right, of us. Starting with the apostles, man. This is what we endure for. We endure all things for the elect's sake. All right, so that completes 1 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter. All right, so I'm just going to get a few here off the comment board. And shalom to you, beloved Akim Akwaf, tuning in. And Yahweh Shema Shabbat Thumb. Wabar Kartawa. Beloved brother Damawati, Jim in his likeness. Shalom. Brother Atazawan. All right, you Akwaf. All right. Got two Atazawans on here. Okay, that's what's up. Brother Lion of Judah. Tazawam, and got the other Tazawam. Shalom to both y'all. brother Barak. Yasharala Shalom. So I'm gonna get a few scriptures real quick. All right. It's Romans 10 and 14. How then shall they call on him whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? This is why the Lord set up the ministry. He set up, you read in Ephesians the 4th chapter, he set up the office of the prophets, the teachers, the evangelists, the preachers, all for the edification of the body, man. This is why we're here, starting with our apostles, man. Just to edify, all right, the Lord's flock, so we can all measure up and meet this unto the standard of Yahweh Shai, the measure of Yahweh Shai. And that's when Yahweh Shai gonna come back. You see, and the elect is being sealed, man. Okay, by the words of these preachers, by the words of the prophets, man. Oh, okay, yeah, he got verse 15 too. It says, and how shall they preach except they be sent? All right, you got to be sent. And the Apostle Paul was sent personally by Yahweh Shah, man. So once again, to the ex-member of Sakari, of the founder of Sakari, Alazar, what do you mean, Paul, he's not a man of the Lord? Oh, Deacon Hakal too, said the same thing. He's not and Paul ain't the man of the Lord, like he's not inspired. Like, what, bro? He was personally sent by Yahweh Shah, man. He says, you are a chosen vessel unto me, man, to bear my name, amongst the Gentiles, the kings, It says, how shall they preach except they be sent? And just like the Apostle Paul was sent, hey, we've been sent, man, starting with our apostles. That's what the word apostle means, is to be sent away, sent away for what? All right, to preach this truth, to preach the everlasting gospel, to sing this song, man. And we've been sent as well. And you don't got to believe us, but believe the work's sake. Lord's willing, we endure to the end. It says, and how shall they preach except they be sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace. And that's Isaiah the 52nd chapter. How beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things, man. Yep. Romans 13 and 10, love worketh no ill to his neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. That's right, man. See, and the elect, they're going to fulfill that law as they lay down their lives, deny themselves on the daily. This is a daily thing to deny ourselves, because that flesh want to do what the flesh want to do every single day. So we got to deny ourselves. We got to kill that old man daily, man, for the sake of, this gospel, for the sake of Yahweh B'Shem Shai, all right, and his people, the elect. All right. So, yep. I'll get one more. Matthew, the brother Lion of Judah, put up Matthew 5 and 12. I actually want to get that scripture. It's been up on my mind. How heaven rejoices over one sinner that repents. Sinner. I believe it's Luke 15, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Yep, Luke 15 and 7. All right, this is Luke chapter 15 and verse I'll start at verse 3. I'm just going to read it in the NLT. It says, so Yahushua told them this story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me because I have found my lost sheep. In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents, and that's the elect, man, who repents and returns to the Most High, than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. See? So the Lord, man, he rejoices over one, you see, over the elect, all right, that comes back into him, man, that was once lost. See, and that was us, man. Man, we was lost as hell out here in this world, bro. So now it's our job, all right. If the Lord put that put that lot upon you to be a teacher, a preacher, a prophet. All right, it's our job, man. All right, to go help Yahweh Shah look for that one lost sheep, to go look for the elect. You see? So that's our crown. That's our rejoicing, man. All right. So yeah, I just wanted to get into that. Lord's will. All right, this was edifying. So 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, walk worthy of the Lord who called you into his kingdom. All right. He said, that's my other page, brother. Oh, that okay. So you got a page named Lost Sheep, or Lost Sheep. Yeah, kind. But yeah, man. Hey, Lord's will. Hey, you Akim and Aquath were edified. And until next time, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory into my power. Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushua, Ba'Shem Hakodash. I want to give double honor to my beloved apostle, Elder Great Millstone, Muwaf Lava Ball, Shalom.